Good morning, good afternoon or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. Now we're going to look at expanding brackets and we'll start with some reminders. If I asked you what is 3 times negative 4, would you be able to tell me the answer to that? The answer would be negative 12 because a positive times a negative gives us a negative. If I asked you what is negative 5 times 2, would you know that that is equal to negative 10? A negative times a positive gives us a negative. And if I asked you to multiply negative 4 times negative 5, well, a negative times a negative gives us a positive. So that would be equal to 20. Okay, now let's look at something else. Let's look, if I asked you what is 2 times 3y? Now this is work we've been doing recently. 2 times 3y. 3y is just 3 times y. So that would be 2 times 3 times y is equal to 6y. If I asked you to work out negative 3 times 4p, negative 3 times 4b, we could write that out as negative 3 times 4 times p. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12, so that's negative 12p. And let's look at another one. If I asked you to work out 7 times negative 3p, then that is just 7 times negative 3p is just negative 3 times p, so that would be negative 21. 7 times negative 3, negative 21p. Okay, let's see if you remember what a times a is equal to. If I wrote a times a. Now a times a is equal to a squared, a to the power of 2. Remember, it's not a plus a, it's a times a. A times a is equal to a squared. Let's look at another one. If we had 3a times 5a, then 3a is just 3 times a, so that's 3 times a, times 5a is just 5 times a. So if we deal with the numbers first, 3 times 5 is equal to 15. A times a is equal to a squared, so 15a squared. Let's do one more. If we had negative a times 2a, let's see, that would equal, now that negative a is really negative 1a, so it's negative 1a times 2a. If we're going to put a number there, it would be negative 1. Now that is equal to negative 1 times a, and 2a is 2 times a. So let's deal with our numbers again. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. A times a is a squared. So that's negative 2a squared. Okay, let's look at expanding some brackets. Now, first of all, I'm going to write this out again exactly as it is. 2 times 3y minus 8 minus 2y minus 1. And what I'm going to do now is there's really, if we want to write a number in there, it's really 1. So it's negative 1 outside there. Now I'm going to multiply out my first bracket first, and whatever is outside the bracket multiplies each term inside the bracket. So inside the bracket here, I've got 3y and I've got negative 8. These are the two terms that are inside that bracket. The 2 outside the bracket is going to multiply these terms. So let's do that then. So that would be 2 times 3y. Now we looked at that in our reminders, that's just 6y. And 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. Then we turn our attention to what's inside the bracket. And before I multiply out the bracket, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to encircle what I have inside the bracket. Now inside the bracket, I've got 2y and I've got negative 1. So let's look at that then. With negative 1 outside the bracket, multiplies each term inside. Negative 1 times 2y is negative 2y. And negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Now once you've done that, you are going to collect like terms. So let's do that. we've got here 6y and minus 2y. 6y, negative 2y, take away 2y, is equal to 4y. And here, negative 16 plus 1. Now we think of our number ladder, negative 16, add 1, we're climbing up the ladder 1, so it's negative 15. So 4y minus 15 would be our answer. Okay, let's look at a second example. If we go over here, this one's a wee bit harder. Again, what we're going to do, first of all, is encircle what we have inside the bracket. Be inside the bracket this time, I have 4e and I have plus 3. So if I multiply what I have, the 2e outside the bracket multiplies each term inside. 2e times 4e, now we did that, that's just 2e times 4e. Remember, 2 times 4 is equal to 8. E times e is equal to e squared. So that would be 8e squared. 2e times plus 3. 2e times 3 is equal to plus 6e. So plus 6e. And again, I'm going to circle what's inside the bracket. So if I encircle what's inside the bracket I have e and I have negative 5. So I'm encircling what I have inside the bracket. Outside the bracket, I have negative 3e. So if we multiply what's outside the bracket, negative 3e is going to multiply each term inside. Negative 3 times e is negative 3e squared. Negative 3 times negative 5. Now if you want, you can do that at the side. If not, you don't have to. Negative 3e times negative 5. Negative 3 times negative 5 is plus 15, so plus 15e. Then we're going to gather up like terms. So here we have 8e squared. Now, do we have any other terms that are e squared? Yes, we do. Here it is here, negative 3e squared. So 8e squared minus 3e squared, 5e squared. And here we've got plus 6e and we've got plus 15e. So we've got plus 21e. Okay, thank you.